Well, I have a question for you, Mal. With this movie that we made, where did the idea come from behind recovery? And just kind of like, why don't you go over like what those initial conversations were and how we brought it to life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like there's no way to really talk about the movie without sort of backing up a couple of years. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we Whitney and I both I mean, both of us did. Sorry. It's like a you can cut that out if you want.
We're
What
not
an
talking to
awkward.
anyone else. It's just us in
There's
here.
no one else in this room. Um we were both doing Studio C, which is a sketch comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
And we both really liked it, but we both didn't want to do sketch forever.
Mm-hmm.
Had other passions and other things we wanted to do, a lot more interest in kind of movies and TV and storytelling
It
in
wasn't
general.
even what we went to school for necessarily.
No,
That was like our side gig that we had fun with after class or something, you know.
you went to school for creative writing and I went to school for film.
Hmm.
So
But then we got jobs doing sketch,
we
which
got
was
jobs doing sketch,
awesome.
which felt connected to what we both wanted to do. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm writing creatively, and oh, I am in like the room with film, you
Mhm.
know. But when we left and we started this web series company with all of our various cast members. And I think we were still trying to figure out how to scratch the itches that we felt while we were there, and we weren't
Mhm.
really sure. And we started talking about side projects on the side of like other things that we could be making even outside of our web series company, which in a lot of ways felt like a dream. We were making web series with our friends,
Mhm.
but it was still sort of like working for a client and trying really hard to and also because it was with our sketch comedy friends, as funny as possible at all
Joke
times.
every 8 seconds,
So it wasn't
like.
necessarily like, what's in your heart?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, which I think every filmmaker can relate to. Like,
Yeah.
no one's asking you what's in your heart when you're starting. You're just like filling a brief,
Mhm.
or trying your best to be what people think you are
Sure.
already. Like, or if any, we were really lucky. Like, we were able to establish a little bit of an audience, and then that audience is like, I know you as this, and this is all I want from you. All I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit of pigeonholing, I guess. It was
Right.
a decade of
Yeah.
experience in one area.
And super, super fun, but a person is just so many things, you
Mhm.
know? So I feel like we had started talking about side projects and other things we wanted to talk about. I had like a very HBO style show that I was like, this is way too dark for
I
anyone in our
still wanna
audience.
make it.
I don't even know if I could write this and people like if I feel like maybe people would be so offended by it. And you had a bunch of other things that you were talking about, including a show called Roadrunners,
Yes.
where it was about two sisters who were going on a cross country road trip to
To Portland. Yeah.
dispose of a body,
To
right?
dispose of a
That
body.
was like the main goal.
Mhm.
And you were starting to crank out episodes, and we were kind of just dreaming about a time when we might be able to make something that we just wanted to make.
Mhm.
It wasn't really about you know, what would make us money, what would bring in like the next job or something
Mhm.
like that. It was sort of like, what would we make if we could make anything we wanted?
And it was also always the obstacle of, well, how do we make this? How do we get it funded? How do we get it
Right.
up and running? And I don't know, that seems to be a question that a lot of first-time filmmakers end up running into all the time.
Mhm.
You have a script and then you're like, "Cool, who wants to help me make this
Who
script?"
will even read it?
Right.
you know?
Right.
And once they read it, it's like, great, I'm a person who doesn't have any money. I liked it though. Or
Yeah,
something like that,
exactly.
you know?
That was constantly my experience. I know, like,
Hmm.
that was always a question we had was, "How do we do it out? How do we do it after this?"
Right. And you had written another screenplay
Mhm.
that would have required an older actress, hopefully someone who was a bigger name, in order
Mhm.
to even be able to make it.
Mhm.
So I think we both were at this stage where we were sort of like, kind of in this transition from our sketch comedy careers and trying to figure out like what is it that we really want to do, and is it even possible to make a transition into, is it independent filmmaking, are we writing sitcoms and then trying to get them sold in LA, like how do we do this,
Mhm.
and then we were in the middle of finishing, and we kept getting jobs at JK. We like had a lot of writing to do all the
Yeah.
time, so we
Yeah.
wrote
Busy bees.
3 web series
Mhm.
over the course of like what, late 2018
Mhm.
to the end
2019.
of 2019. We were filming that and then editing it when the pandemic started. So we were
Mhm.
just finishing, like, giving notes and finishing edits and stuff on that stuff. And we had gotten a lot of experience from our web series company. We were in, like, super great spot where we
We were
knew
scrappy.
very scrappy.
I
Like
mean, I'd
it
say
was dumpster work, but it was decent.
I've taken like 10 years off of my life, but
I know, right?
I know how to make something
I
cheap
will
and fast.
not live past 50. There's just no way. But yeah, so the pandemic hits, and at first, I mean, I think everybody understands what that felt like. It was horrible and terrifying and anxiety provoking, and then isolating and boring and hopeless, So we decided, like, hey, I mean, we might as well strike up our side convo. We always are like dreaming about what we can do next,
And that, I feel like, only could happen after 3 months of my like despair and rock bottom. Because I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, what's the point?
Totally.
Why would I ever want to do anything again?
Will there even be a world after this?
It's just going to be taken from under me. So I may as well never try again.
Yeah. I mean,
The feeling.
We didn't start talking until June.
Yeah.
So I think we both spent our months, collecting urine in jars and all that stuff, or whatever it is that like describes
your
symbolically your pandemic, So we started talking about basically like, is there any way that we can create like a little bit of motivation, a little bit of hope?
Yeah.
Just by talking about ideas. So I was working on a sitcom script at the time, and we started talking a little bit about Roadrunners. And then we started thinking, like, is there anything that could be made now?
Yeah.
Because if that were the case, then now is the perfect time for us to do whatever we want with our own money. Because generally, doing that would mean saying no to another job or giving up some other kind of opportunity, or it would take too much time. But we have nothing but time right now. In fact, truly nothing. We have time only. It's our only resource.
It's our only friend.
It's our only resource. So we started kind of talking around that Roadrunners idea with all of that context in mind. I know it was like a long-winded way to get there, but that was our experience. Well, it took a long time.
You had been watching like tons of
bottle movies.
Like The Trip, I remember, was something that just changed your world in terms of like a movie does not have to be like inciting incident, threshold, world gets turned upside down, B plot, Dark Night of the Soul. It doesn't have to be everything.
Well, and I'd seen that movie when it came out, and I remember thinking, like, I was interested the whole time. Was it just Tom Hardy, or what was happening with the story?
Oh, so Locke.
Oh, did I say Locke? Oh,
I said The Trip.
Yeah, I'd seen Locke when it came out, and I was like enraptured the entire time and thought, how did they do this? I know Tom Hardy's incredible. He's extremely handsome, and his accent is very cool.
But he was sick while filming, so he wasn't even like in his like top form, and it was still.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe I like sick Tom Hardy even more.
Sick Tom Hardy, and there's some animal magnetism there.
Disgusting. I think like the second time around, I was like looking for clues. So I was just marking like every time the story moved and what really happened and how they did it, really, because I cannot remember the name of the screenwriter, but he's brilliant. And it really just sort of demystified the idea of what a screenplay really is to me. And I think like to all aspiring filmmakers, I think it's very, very, very good to throw the book out and watch something that breaks the mold like that and recognize that a movie is just something that lasts 90 minutes. And you can figure out how you use those 90 minutes.
Or 80 minutes.
Or 80 minutes. Ours is only 80 minutes. In fact, I think it was Sundance like feature requirement is only like 50.
50 plus. Yeah.
So think about that. Your dreams may be closer than you think.
Yep.
But yeah, so I just started recognizing that they had sort of picked like an A, B, C, and sort of a thin D, and then they just braided it.
Yeah.
So we talked about doing something that was just a braid like that and making it as simple as possible. And we were like, it's a road trip movie. So it'll be so easy.
It'll be simple.
It'll be so easy. Just you and me in a car, and we'll just fit the camera in there, and the angles will be perfect, and it'll be done.
I think about that all the time.
Really complicated, but writing was truly delightful, though.
Writing was delightful.
We had a great time writing it.
And it was a quick writing time, too. It was 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah. I mean, what we ended up doing was, for me, I have super terrible ADD. So approaching anything longer than a sketch has been brutal for me since we left Studio C. Just feeling like this is exhausting. You have a big idea, it's up in the clouds and it's gorgeous, and you have to wrestle it down to the earth and completely ruin it.
Mhm.
And you start to put it on paper and realize like this thing you thought was really great, it just like slips through your fingers, it doesn't work
Mhm.
as well. An outline is like everything to me now, and
Mhm.
we had such a good experience with our outline. We basically we took a suggestion that I had just received from a friend. He's like, I just basically write 1 to 80, and I put all of like the different scene, like my favorite scenes, and try and figure out kind of where they're going to go 1 to 80 on that list of scenes,
Mhm.
and then I just fill them in until I
Mhm.
feel like I have enough to start my draft. I thought it was like the best advice ever,
It
and it
made it
helped us so
so
much.
digestible. It made
Yeah.
it, like, not this scary process anymore. Because I feel like when you're trying to beat a movie out, like, trying to write it out in
Mhm.
beats, that's when it's like, well, everything needs to mean something, everything needs to, like which, like, you don't wanna have anything extraneous in your movie, but
Sure.
when you're just able to look at it in terms of numbers and you're like, "This is, like, roughly about how many scenes are in a movie, and these are the things I'm looking forward to putting in there, so let's just start from there." Made it so much easier for me to approach as, like, this doable map,
Mhm.
and so that was really interesting to kinda work out with you and just, like, know that we had, like, 3 different plots that we were trying to follow and just kind of, like, wrapping them around each other until they all
Right. And I feel like Recovery, the way it ended up turning out, it probably seems like slightly more lackadaisical than, it's definitely more lackadaisical than Locke, which was
Sure.
something we were very inspired by. But
Mhm.
we did try really hard to like, okay, B's going to come right on the heels of C, or like
Mhm.
sometimes this A plot and B plot are going to be in the same scene together for a second or
Mhm.
something like that.
Mhm.
Because we were just trying, we were very aware of like those different braids and trying to scatter them and stagger them so that the plot was still moving even if it's not moving at a super fast pace. It's a
Mhm.
road trip movie and we did a lot of kind of playing too. It was extremely helpful in us for us to actually get it done and to actually tell a story of some kind.
Mhm.
Because I think, you have the option of making any kind of movie you want. I mean, look at like Monty Python or Airplane. Those are just like sketch movies where you just like make other like various funny um, vignettes and then like barely string them together
Right.
and you watch it just because it's funny. You can make something that's just beautiful to watch. And, I think it's just kind of changing, just reminding yourself, like, what are you really telling yourself a movie is? And maybe you just take off some of those chains and
Right.
get into the process. I'm trying to think too. So we did that outline,
Mhm.
and then I think maybe it was the first or second day of writing. We just decided because I was. This is another suggestion I would have for people who are writing. I don't know what you would say about this. Like if you're more a person who likes page length, I kind of like just time. Like
Yeah.
as a writer, if I say I'm going to put in 2-3 hours a day or something,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
do that, I just feel so much more satisfied, and it's easier for me, especially with my short attention span, to say like, well, I put in the time today.
Yep.
And it's not the same as me having a full screenplay done, but every day you put in that time, it will get easier.
Well,
You know?
and some days it brings the guilt out of like, well, today was only a 2-page day,
Right.
but you spent that amount of time because maybe it was a freaking hard scene to write, and
Right.
you really were trying to like get the nuances of characters into it or something like that. And then maybe some days you get like 10 pages in those 2 or 3 hours, but you
Hmm.
realize that like not every day is going to be the same, and so giving time length, I feel like is like 100% the way I would go.
Well, and I just finished Shonda Rhimes' book. It was very interesting. She's a
Mm,
fascinating person. She is the highest paid showrunner in the world as well, which is really no surprise. She's
that's
such a
awesome.
powerhouse as far as just like creating
Mhm.
constantly
Mhm.
stuff that people love.
It's consumable.
It's very consumable content. But she describes like her happy place at like she says that her happy place is writing in the pantry. Like as a child, that's like where she did all of her imagining. So when she's in flow in writing, she like calls it the pantry. But she's like, you have to run 5 miles every time you want to go into that pantry. And along the way are all these distractions and all these demons and all of these
Mhm.
things that you have to get better and better at ignoring to get into that pantry.
Right.
And so I think that setting some kind of time limit every day is a good way to like get to the pantry. Like the goal is to get to the pantry, like find at least 5 minutes, where you actually felt like you got something down.
Yeah.
Because I think we spend all this time sort of maybe romanticizing our ideas or like, overthinking them to the point where it's hard to even, like I was saying, like wrestle them down from the sky.
Well, and I feel like my approach to it is maybe a little bit inverted from your approach because
Mhm.
mine is that like I'll just like get it out. Like
Mm.
I write it all down and then I'll look at it afterwards and be like, "Oh crap. Like this was terrible." And I just end up like scrapping a page or two before I can actually get going again. But that's my 5 miles of just like I don't think it at all. And then I write it and then I rethink it and have to recreate it.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it definitely makes sense to, like, just get going where whatever process you have and
Whatever
give
it is for
yourself
you.
that time limit.
Yeah.